Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. We have made it to Thursday, and the good news about being Thursday, not Friday, is that the combine workouts are finally getting underway with some of those positional groups there. Kicking things off today, defensive linemen, linebackers are hitting the field, and our guys are out there watching them. Now, draft expert Ryan Wilson, chatting with him, he said defensive line maybe a little bit better last year. Linebackers, pass rushers are better this year. Some of the top prospects we are keeping on our eyes on. Potential #1 overall pick, Will Anderson there, another big prospect. Tyree Wilson, he's not going to work out. He's coming over a foot injury, but he says maybe I'll do like a bench press or something, but he's going to be out there talking to teams. Let's welcome in senior NFL writer Pete Prisco, Rick Spielman, who are going to be out there watching the big guys work out. Pete, I'll start with you as the elder statesman. We looked up both your ages today. When you're looking at these guys working out, when it comes to edge rushers, 2 years, that's it. What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, you want to see explosiveness. That's what I always look for in a pass rusher. I want to see, can you get around the corner? Can you bend? How much explosiveness do you have? And the reason I say that, you go back and look at the history of the great pass rushers, all of them have had that. You know, Lawrence Taylor had it. Derek Thomas had it. The Bosa's both have it. And, guys like that. And that's first and foremost for me. That's what I look for in a pass rusher.
Yeah, and those guys have to have that ability to bend at the edge, and especially when they get to the quarterback level, because you can tell if a guy is stiff through his lower body or if he can bend and dip through the edge of the offensive tackle. And one of the drills that I really enjoy watching is they do a hoop drill where they have to run around a big giant hula hoop, and they have to bend and pick up a tennis ball when they do that. So you can see the hip flexibility, his ability to bend at the edge, and all great pass rushers have that trait.
I realize that we need to set up a combine for you guys. Maybe we'll do that at the end of the week.
We'll just have Pete do the hula hoop.
We'll just have Pete do the hula hoop. That's going to be it. Look, we've talked so much, you guys, about Will Anderson. Let's talk about Tyree Wilson here. He said this week, I feel like I'm a different pass rusher than most. I'm not just committed to power. I feel like I can do power and speed. Pete, how do you evaluate these two guys stacked up against one another?
I think he's spot on with his assessment of himself. That's exactly what he is. He's a big physical player. I mean, he's a specimen. He's a big kid. He can play, as a down end and hold up in the run game. But I think he's going to be a better pass rusher on the next level than people give him credit for. I mean, you look at the traits. The traits are all there. But you watch the tape. There's tape that shows his ability to rush the passer as a big guy. And there aren't a lot of guys that big that can do what he does. Look, Will Anderson, we know he's probably going to be the first defensive player picked or the second defensive player picked. The bottom line with him, and I've said this all along, I think, and I talk about the explosiveness, I don't see it from him.
From who?
From Will Anderson.
Well, you're wrong on that.
Well, you know what? I'm just telling you what I see. I might be wrong. You might. Yeah, I mean, you do work for Alabama, so you know him better than I do. But I just don't see it. This year, you didn't see it at all. And I know he was reduced this year, and I know there were some other issues as well. But I think he's a good player, and he's going to be a really good football player. He's not Derek Thomas. He doesn't have that type of ability.
But if you did your thorough evaluation and actually went back and watched 21 tape,
I did.
Like I watched 21 tape, you've seen that Derek Thomas. You've seen a lot of the Garrett.
No, you're talking about like the Von Miller.
Von Millers of the world.
Yeah,
you've seen that coming off the edge. And when they reduce him down inside, that is not his game.
But he wasn't reduced all year either.
No.
It wasn't all year. So where was the explosiveness this year? If he had it last year, where was it this year?
It was there this year.
Nah.
You just misevaluated it again.
He wasn't. Was he the same player as he was a year ago?
He wasn't as productive this year, but he also had a lot more attention to him because of what he did last year.
Darnell Wright destroyed him, and he played him one up, and he went over to the other side and had to go work on the other tackle for a while.
Learn the game.
Yeah, I just did. Taught you a bunch right there.
Guys, let's move on to the interior defensive lineman. And Rick, I'll give you first say on this because you're talking about the edge rushers.
Thank you. Finally.
You're welcome. You wanted to see the hip flexibility there. You like the hula hoop drill. Jalen Carter, I mean, he's there. He's not going to be out there working out. It does give the other guys some time to shine. So when it comes to these interior defensive linemen, Rick, what are you looking for?
Well, it depends what scheme you're running. So, we talk about this all the time. If you're a 34 odd front team, you're going to look at these big giant nose tackles, and you're going to see their ability to anchor, their explosiveness out of their hips. if you're looking at a nose tackle compared to a 3 technique, you also want to see a lot of the things that you see in the defensive end. You want to watch them in this hoop drill. You want to see if they're able to bend, and they have to have what we refer to as first step quickness. And you can tell that by a lot of the drills that they do here at the Combine.
You know what's interesting? We've said this all, and the game has become an air game. So you want your defensive tackles now, you want them to be able to get up the field and attack the quarterback. Will the game eventually get back to where it's more power running again on the interior, where you're going to have to change the way you evaluate that position a little bit?
I think if you look back, you remember when the run and shoot came and everybody wanted to start spreading out, then all of a sudden you have the Tampa 2 defense, and then all of a sudden teams like, okay, you're going to do that, we're going to go back to the power running game. That's why we drafted Adrian Peterson. You're going to play good defense and do that. Then all of a sudden they're adjusting to the athletes that are coming out of college right now. So a lot of these coaches that have a building block in the system that they run, they're going to adjust the system according to the players they draft.
Guys, let's talk about Bryan Bresee for a second. Look, this combine is absolutely huge for him. Former top recruit in the country, had an outstanding freshman year at Clemson. 2021, he had to deal with an ACL, a shoulder injury. And then last season, his 15-year-old sister, she died from brain cancer. He was dealing with a kidney infection. I talked to Ryan Wilson. He said, look, initially had him as a day 2 guy, given what we've seen the past couple of years, taken to granted all the turmoil that he has gone through. But he said he talked to him yesterday. He fell in love with him, said he could easily be a day 1 guy. Rick, from a front office perspective, how are you evaluating him?
Well, Ryan Wilson has fallen in love with a lot of guys that everybody we've interviewed, he's fallen in love with.
For 2 years now, everybody.
So it's hard to distinguish who he really likes and who really doesn't, but that's a whole nother segment we can do on a later date. But he has unique size. He is a very good athlete. I think the thing when you watch him is he has to learn how to get his pads lower. Too many times he's standing up as a pass rusher and against the run, and he'll get knocked off the ball. But I think when you try to put him in these drills, you're going to see how flexible he is in his lower body, his ability to bend. But when he does that and he turns it on, he's one of the most dominant defensive linemen in this draft class.
And the traits are there. I mean, he's clearly was the #1 recruit in the country. I think he committed on our air, and as a matter of fact, way back in the day, he committed to Clemson. He's a big-time player. I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. In fact, I think he's going to be a better NFL player than he was in college because of all the stuff he went through. Last year, you just got to wipe that out. I mean, emotionally, he was spent, obviously. That's a terrible thing to go through, and then you have to deal with the kidney infection and the injury the year before. So I think his best football's in front of him.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because if you've seen what he did before the injury and before the tragic death of his sister, he was a dominant football player.
By the way, just FYI, I told Ryan Wilson last week, I said he's going to be a day 1 pick, and he pushed back on me. Then he interviewed him here, and now all of a sudden, he's a day 1 pick now.
He's a top 10 pick.
Here he goes.
We can't wait till his next mock comes out so we can.
That's what our evaluator does.
Yeah. Yay!
Ryan's just sitting over there. Look, we're giving some love to Ryan Wilson. Pete, since you are clearly
he needs it.
correct about everything, what are you watching for with those middle linebackers?
Well, I think when you look at the linebackers, you got to see how they run. This, again, I go back to what I said earlier. It's a speed game now. It's an air game. You go to the 49ers, look at their 2 linebackers. Those guys can fly to the football because they have the ability to run, cover, match up. That's what you want in a linebacker. You got to look at those guys. You remember back in the day, the inside guys were big run pluggers, big giant guys who couldn't run.
Pepper Johnson.
Correct. They couldn't run. The old Giants defense with Bill Parcells, those guys could not run. Now they have to be able to cover and run. So I think speed and the ability to cover people is first and foremost on my list.
And they have to be able to play multiple positions because you have only 5 to maybe 6 linebackers on your roster. You get a guy that goes down. He may be labeled as a middle linebacker, but he also has to be able to play will linebacker. He has to be able to play Sam. And they have to be able to play 3 downs because if you get a linebacker, old school linebacker, that's a 2-down Mike, as you said back when you started evaluating back in the early 60s when you were covering NFL.
That was the 50s, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, get that right.
And you think that we're only 2 years apart? Look at us. Are you kidding me? But anyway, you have to be a 3-down linebacker in order to get drafted high.
Yeah, and you got to be able to run. I mean, that's the number one priority. You look at the linebackers now, 225, 230. There's no 250 guys around usually anymore.
Those were the strong safeties back in the day when you started.
Right. Exactly right.
When you started. I heard that, Rick. One more player we're going to put a spotlight on here, Drew Sanders. And I'm going to steal this from Ryan because I clearly like to pit you guys against each other. He's sitting there, went from Alabama to Arkansas. He said he lined up all over to the defense for Arkansas. He has been a one-man wrecking crew when he is on the field. I don't know who to start with here. Whoever thinks they're right or has a better assessment of Drew Sanders, you can go first.
You love him.
I love him. He's my favorite linebacker in this draft. And Ryan Wilson didn't like him at the beginning. I said, you better go back and look at some tape on him because this guy can be a dominant player. The unique thing about him is he's almost 6'5". He's probably going to weigh close to 240. He can cover. He can play the run. But the best thing he does is rush the passer as well. So when you can get a linebacker, especially that can play stack behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of times teams will try to isolate that linebacker on a running back, and that's a huge mismatch when a running back has to go up and potentially pass pro against a guy like this.
Where does he play in the NFL?
I'd play him at Sam linebacker. I'd keep him off the ball, and I would use him in multiple ways.
Here's the one problem.
He's a unique athlete for that size.
And look, the one thing you notice, though, and this is my one knock on him.
He has
when
no
I watch
knocks.
the tape, of course, because you like everybody, is he got blocked at times. People got on him. The body's got on him.
You look at all the little young, the 225-pound guys you just talked about, they all get blocked.
Somebody's got to bring the negative here. You and Ryan prop every guy up in the whole league, and it doesn't matter what they do or what they've done. You prop them all up. Somebody's got to bring the negative.
None of these guys know how to use their hands to take on blockers. They have to learn how to do that when they get
a little bit stronger.
All of them do. You name a linebacker that has heavy hands that can get off block.
He got engulfed.
No one can do it better than this kid.
Well, draft him first overall then if you had the first pick.
You don't draft linebackers that high.
Thank you.
Draft pass rushers and quarterbacks.
Did you hear anything they just said?
I
think it was just like, I'm just kidding. It was a great assessment. Rick thinks he knows more than Pete.
I am
Pete
trying to
thinks he
figure
knows
out
more
how
than
Rick has all of his hair and Pete has none of it.
Okay, I didn't say that. That is coming.
It went a long time ago, Chris.
Yeah.
It went a long time ago, and I just went with it. You know, unlike guys like Brady Quinn, I let it go.
And we're 15 years apart, not 2 years apart.
I love that
as
Brady's
you can tell.
just catching strays here. Love it.
Pete Prisco, Rick Spielman. We're only on day one of workouts, and this is where we are.
Yeah, but it's day 4 of those.
Yeah, they've been out there for quite some. Did they go to St. Elmo's yesterday?
I think they go every night.
Elmo or Elmoza? Elmo apostrophe S? But by the way, you can look at the combine schedule. It's on your TV, but we're figuring this out. What is it, Chris?
Well, I think it's St. Elmo.
Elmo has a cocktail sauce.
Yeah, the shrimp cocktail sauce. Lots of horseradish.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.